Okay, guys, it's time for the literal meat and potatoes of this course. We are going to talk about nutrition and diet and food and all that kind of stuff. So strap in, because this is a meaty subject. Okay, seriously though, below here there are a ton of different PDFs, so you're going to want to download those, print those, have those, keep those, have them on your phone, have them handy, because when you're going to the store or you're reading the label or whatever you're doing, it's going to be really handy to have these things nearby, because for the first little while it's a little bit of a learning curve. We're talking about a whole new way to eat here. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to, so having these papers nearby is going to be really, really handy, okay? So I'm going to go through the pages in kind of the order that I made them to go in because I wrote them. So the first thing that we're going to go through is the label reading guidelines. So often when you look at a food item, most people just look at the percent daily value box. So, 20% of your vitamin A or 3% fat. I'm going to say, let's not worry about that, okay? It's complicated, it's based on daily values that are probably not specific to you, and I don't know about you, but I've never been 100% sure if I got 100% daily value of anything. What I am sure of is that every single day I'm eating good, wholesome food. So that's what we're going to focus on. So when you're reading the label, I want you to skip the percent daily value and go right to the ingredient list, okay? So when you're looking at the ingredient list, that's telling you actually what's inside the food. So when you look at it, you want the list to be shorter than longer, right? So if you look at an ingredient list and it's about this long, that's kind of a red flag. Even if you made something really complicated at home, say you made a homemade cake, it would still only be like 10, 15 ingredients max. Whereas when you look at these products from the store, they can have 20, 30 different ingredients. So that's a bit of a red flag. The other red flag is if most of those ingredients read like a science project. So if you're like, yeah, I know that, don't know that, don't know that, don't know that, that's probably a food that you're not going to want to put into your body. Your body was made to digest food. Your body doesn't know how to digest chemicals and synthetic properties, right? So while some of them are totally natural and normal and fine, they just have fancy names, a lot of them are not necessarily great for you. And here in North America, we're at a bit of a disservice because a lot of the things that are allowed in our food are actually banned in other countries because they make you sick and they hurt your stomach lining or they cause cancer or they cause ADHD, all of this weird stuff. So you really want to be getting clean, natural food. Now, if you're looking at an ingredient list and it's like clean, 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 and then one or two things at the end that you're not sure about, it's totally okay to whip out your phone and Google them. See what the internet thinks about their health properties. Are they actually good for you or are they banned in Europe and possible carcinogens? You'll never know until you look. So don't be afraid to look it up. That's all I'm saying. But if most things on the list are kind of weird and you don't know what they are, put the food back. The next thing that we want to look at is we always want to make sure that we go to the back of the label because the front of the label is usually a whole bunch of BS. So when they're telling you it's natural, it's low fat, it's half the sugar, all that stuff is marketers telling you what's inside the food. It's not necessarily a real health claim. The only health claims in the United States that are actually legal that you can't put on unless they're 100% true are organic, zero trans fat, and gluten-free. So those three things you can trust, but everything else is just a marketer saying what they think you want to hear. Oh, low carb is cool, so we're going to say this product's low carb. Baloney, get to the back, read the ingredient list, okay? When you're looking at the ingredient list, sugar is ubiquitous. Sugar is in everything. You'll see in this label reading guideline, there are over 60 different names for sugar. Sugar compounds, ways that sugar is manufactured, things that are sugar, over 60 different names. So when you're looking at an ingredient list, you're probably going to find a couple of them, right? So we want to avoid almost all added sugar, if not all added sugar. There is absolutely zero reason you don't have any nutritional value that needs added sugar in your life. And this isn't talking about fruit, sugar from fruit. Fruit is great. I love fruit. This is talking about added sugar. So The reason that we want to avoid added sugar is because it's inflammatory, okay? So added sugar causes inflammation in the body. And if you're getting it at every single meal, and you might not realize how much sugar you're eating until you actually start reading your label, you're probably getting a little bit of sugar in every single sauce and every single meal that you eat. Everything has sugar in it. So we want to get rid of as much sugar as we can from your diet, okay? 7 out of the 10 leading causes of mortality are caused by low levels of inflammation. Sugar causes low levels of inflammation. Get sugar out of your diet. The other thing about sugar is that sugar makes you gain weight. It's not necessarily carbs that make you fat, it's the fact that carbs turn into sugar really fast in your body, that then that glucose gets turned into fat almost immediately. So if your goal is to lose weight, having any added sugar in your diet is not doing you any justice. And that is especially true for artificial sweeteners. Please, please, if you are still eating artificial sweeteners, stop it right now. Put down your Splenda, throw it away. That stuff's junk. You do not need that at all, ever. Please, God, get rid of it. Next up, we're going to talk about oil. So not all oils are bad for you, but some are worse than others. You'll probably have heard of omega-3. Omega-3 is in everything. Everybody wants to add omega-3 to their product because it's really good for you and it's actually really healthy. Omega-3's brother or cousin or whatever is omega-6. And omega-6 is inherently inflammatory. So omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, omega-6 is inflammatory. And usually omega-3 and omega-6 are like BFFs, they like level each other out, everything's cool. Unfortunately, we are getting way more omega-6 than we are omega-3. And that's because the omega-6 oils are so much cheaper. So they get put into all the foods, they get cooked at in restaurants, they're just everywhere. So when you're cooking in your home, you really want to make sure that you're focusing on getting omega-3 oils so that you're counterbalancing anything that you're getting when you eat in the outside world with the influx of omega-6. So you'll see in here I have a list of oils to love and oils to toss, and the ones that I'm telling you to toss is because they're very high in omega-6. On the love list, you'll also notice that there are heat recommendations. So high heat, medium heat, low heat, apply cold. So that's because the properties in that particular oil get degraded if they get too hot. So while there's a couple of oils that are really good at high heat, that are good for frying or sautéing or baking at a really high heat, whatever you're doing, there's a lot of oils that you should really not get that hot. So that's all explained in the PDF. Okay, now we're going to talk about carbs. If I had $1 for every time somebody told me that they were going off carbs or that they'd given up carbs, I would be a millionaire. The problem is that people are mixing up what carbs are. So carbs are actually the building block of every single food. So whether it's a piece of broccoli or a piece of chocolate cake, it's made up of protein, carbs, and fat. Okay? So when people say that they're giving up carbs, usually they mean things like bread and pastries and, the baked deliciousness. And I'm totally on board with that. You want to get all that stuff out of your diet. That stuff is way high in sugar too, usually. So it's a fast, simple carb that turns into sugar really quickly in your body. Whereas slow-burning carbs, obviously like fruits and vegetables, but also things like wild rice, quinoa, oatmeal, sprouted grain bread, those are all really great carbs that you can safely incorporate into a really healthy diet. So you really just want to be particular about your carbs and get rid of the, bad for you, you obviously know it's bad for you carbs, and focus on the healthy carbs, okay? So next up, we're going to talk about dairy. Dairy is a little bit controversial. On one school of thought, you need dairy every single day or your bones will basically crumble, you won't have enough calcium in your diet. The other school of thought says that you could live your entire adult life without consuming any milk products and be totally A-okay. So we're going to meet somewhere in the middle, because I'm not going to tell you to totally give it up, and I'm not going to tell you to drink a ton of it, because I don't think that you need to drink a ton of it. But if you do want to incorporate a little bit of dairy into your diet, because you know that your system does really well on it, so by that I mean that when you eat dairy, you don't get a stomach ache, you don't have like massive diarrhea the next day, your skin's not all broken out. If you can eat dairy and like still be a normal functioning human being, totally fine, then having a little bit of dairy in your life is totally fine. If you're like me and you're on the other side of that equation, you probably shouldn't have dairy all that often. I'm like a big fan of cheesecake. Cheesecake is my weakness. So I'll have a piece of cheesecake very rarely from time to time, but only when I know that I don't have something big the next day. So if I know that I'm coming here to do this shoot the next day, there is no way in hell I would eat a piece of cheesecake last night. Even though it would have been delicious, I knew that it was going to be bad news. So you want to be selective about when you eat it. But when you do eat it, make sure that you're getting really high quality dairy. So you always want to go organic because it's an animal product. You want to make sure that you're getting something really high quality. You want to go whole fat also. The reason that we want to go whole fat with dairy is because it actually retains more of the nutritional value than low fat dairy. And in studies, it's been shown that over time, people who eat high fat dairy actually weigh less than people who eat low fat dairy. So when you eat whole fat, organic dairy, it's going to fill you up, you're going to feel fuller longer, and it's going to be more satisfying. So organic, whole fat, and then enjoy it a little bit when you want to. The last thing you want to think about when you're reading an ingredient list is, would my great-grandmother recognize this? Is this actually food? Oftentimes, our society is so overflowing with so many options, but tons of them aren't really actually food. They're food-like products. So that's what you're going to notice when you start reading the ingredient list. You're going to start seeing that these foods that you thought were foods are really, in a sense, like a science experiment. So we really want to get back to nature, we want to get back to natural, and we want to get back to foods that your great-grandmother would recognize and be like, yep, that looks delicious. Okay, so now that we have these label reading guidelines, we're going to move into the kitchen cleanup. So basically what we want to do is take all of these guidelines and then read every single label in your house. So anywhere that you keep food, your pantry, your fridge, your cold storage, if you got snacks at your desk at work, if you, I don't know, carry snacks around in your handbag, anywhere that you keep food, you want to read that label, okay? So the kitchen cleanup exercise is basically taking an afternoon and going through everything that you have. So put on some good music, light some candles, set the mood. It's going to be fun. We want it to be an enjoyable experience. What you want to do, go through each item and decide which of these three piles it's going to go into. Pile number 1, it meets all of the guidelines that we just went through, and you're going to keep it. Pile number 2, it doesn't meet the guidelines, so you're ready to get rid of it, you're going to toss it, or you're going to donate it. Or pile number 3 is foods that don't meet the guidelines, but for whatever reason, you're hesitating, you don't feel good about getting rid of it, you're just not sure, it doesn't feel right. Okay? So obviously the keep stuff, we're going to put back into our cupboards, we're going to make our cupboards nice and clean, we're going to lay all that food out so that you can see it, so that it's at eye level, so that every time you open the fridge or the pantry, the first thing that you see is this really awesome healthy food. The toss donate pile, if it's unopened, definitely take it to a food bank and let it have another life so that it's not wasted. But if it's opened, you're going to want to just toss it, or maybe some unsuspecting people at your office will benefit from your cleaning out your kitchen. For the third pile, the stuff that you're really not feeling good about, let's examine that a little bit. So if you're feeling not good about it because it's a treat that you kind of rely on and you're just like, oh, I really love that chocolate, I really, really don't want to give it up. Okay, can you go a week without thinking about it? Can you go a month without having a bite of it? Or is it something that you have almost every single day? If it's something that you're having every single day or you're thinking about every single day, then it's really not a treat. It's kind of become a crutch almost. So that's the kind of food that you really want to get rid of, okay? The second one is, let's say some other people in your home, they need that food. That's their treat. They really like it. They really want it. So if it's your roommate and they paid for it, obviously you can't get rid of it. That goes for all of this. You can't throw away other people's food. But let's say if it's your family member, maybe it's a kid or a spouse, and you're thinking about it, think about this. If the food's not good enough for you to eat, is it good enough for your spouse to eat? If your health is really important to you, isn't their health also really important to you? Yeah. So maybe toss it. If you really think that they're going to throw a conniption and have a fit if you get rid of it, you can keep it, put it on a really high shelf where it's going to be out of the way, where you're not going to see it, you're not going to be tempted by it, and it's, out of sight, out of mind. And then the next time you go to the store to replace it, try to find a better alternative. So like in the sense of, a chocolate bar. Instead of a chocolate bar with all these additives and sugars and whatever, maybe you can find a chocolate bar that's organic, dark chocolate, that has no additives, and it's just a really high quality product. So that's your options there. If you're still feeling not sure, you're like, I don't know what to do with this, jump on the Facebook group, post the item, post why you're worried about it, and put it to a vote. The people of the Facebook group will help you figure out what to do with it and help you get through any struggles that you're going through around that food, okay? So now we have this beautiful kitchen full of delicious, healthy foods that is gonna make it really easy for you to find and prepare healthy meals and snacks, okay? And if you're thinking, oh my God, my kitchen is empty, that's totally okay too, because we're gonna hit the grocery store and we're gonna restock your shelves. But think about that for a second. If your fridge and cabinets are totally empty, all that junk you've been putting into your body for all these years, I'm really glad that we're doing this, because we gotta get that stuff out of your life. It's not good for you. This is like turning over a new leaf. We're starting anew, blank slate. This is gonna be really good. So let's head over to the grocery store. Okay, so now we're at the grocery store. Make sure you bring your guidelines with you, your label reading guidelines, so that you can reference them. And also bring the grocery store PDF so that you can use that as well. Because this is gonna be a little bit of a learning curve. You're used to shopping the way that you shop, and I'm gonna try to teach you to shop the way that I shop. So make sure that you buffer a little bit of extra time for that. It may take you a little bit more time to get through the store, but I promise you, once you kind of internalize these lessons, you'll be in and out of the grocery store in no time flat. Okay, so bring the guides with you. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you come with a full belly, because you don't want to be tempted by all the snacks and treats in the store. Okay, now when we're actually shopping, I want you to think about the following. Buying organic is really great. It's not necessarily 100% necessary. I totally understand that there's different budgets, and if it's not happening, it's not happening. Don't worry about it. But where you can and when you can, it's important to buy organic food. Organic food has a lower pesticide load, it's better for the environment, and it's better for your body. So you want to choose organic when you can. There's a guide in here called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen are the 12 foods that have the most pesticides on them. So those are foods that you're going to want to always buy organic or just don't purchase. And then the Clean 15 are 15 fruits and vegetables that you can always buy conventional because they have a very low pesticide load. So you don't have to worry about it as much. So if you're budget conscious, stick on the Clean 15 and just buy all that stuff and then avoid everything on the Dirty Dozen, okay? When it comes to meat and dairy, you're definitely going to want to choose organic. You're definitely going to want to choose grass-fed or pastured or free range, really, really high quality. Because meat, if you think about it, we are what we eat. So that cow is what that cow ate. That chicken is what that chicken ate. If those animals had yucky lives, then the products that come from them are also going to be higher with hormones and steroids and pesticides even. So you really, really, really want to be getting high quality meat products. And I know at the beginning of this, usually a lot of people rely on meat a lot more because I've taken out a lot of things from your diet. So a lot of people tend to go heavy on the meat, which is fine in the beginning, but eventually you're gonna wanna kind of taper off and eat mostly fruits and vegetables. So yes, you're buying more expensive meat, but over time you're gonna be buying a less volume of it and a less volume of dairy as well. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your budget. When you're navigating the grocery store, this is where most people get totally lost, and I used to do this all the time, totally guilty of it. So what we want to do, you come into the grocery store, your first stop is going to be fruits and vegetables. So fill your cart with an abundance of fruits and vegetables, things that look good, things that look fresh, things that are on sale, anything that tickles your fancy. Just go crazy. It's fruits and vegetables, you can never have enough. Then usually you get to the bread section. So in there, you're going to want to be a little bit more choosy. Maybe you can find some sprouted grain products. Those are sometimes in the freezer section as well, so if you don't see them in the baked goods section, you might need to take a trip to the freezer. But really, you're just going to want to like fly through that section so that you don't get too tempted. You're like, in, you're out. Then we get to meat and dairy. So again, we're going to be choosing really good quality meat and dairy. When it comes to dairy, another great thing that you could try is fermented dairy. So kefir and yogurt are a really good choice. I enjoy those. Just make sure they don't have the added sugar that we're trying to avoid. Then we come over, usually you have your fish section. Again, with fish is basically meat. So again, you want to make sure that you're getting a really high quality product. Then we get to the freezer section. You can actually save a lot of money and time at home and waste at home by buying frozen vegetables and fruits. So that's something to consider. But other than that, most of this section is a lot of junk as well, like freezer meals and all that. If you read those labels, maybe you did at home, you'll realize there's so much garbage in that food. So you're gonna wanna kind of skip over that. Now this is where most people get lost. They go up and down every single aisle in the store because what if they need something in that aisle? And then you end up filling your cart with junk that you probably didn't need, with stuff that's probably not all that good for you, okay? So really what we want to do in the boxed bag section is just get in and get out. So I have a list in the grocery store guideline of, things that are really great that you can get from that section, like canned tomatoes or quinoa or, spices and herbs and all that kind of stuff. But you really don't need to go up and down every single aisle. That's going to save you so much time, okay? So what I want you to do before you get to the grocery store, read through the grocery store guideline. In each section, I have a list of options and suggestions and different kind of things that you can pick up from each section. So if you're not sure, if you're worried or confused or lost, pull out the guide and, just get the things on the list. And remember, you don't have to get everything on the list. I'm not telling you to go to the store and spend $600 on a ridiculous amount of groceries that you're never going to eat. You really just want to go and pick and choose. Maybe you try one thing from the list this week. Maybe you try one thing from the list next week. So you're kind of tasting, and your flavor palette is going to adjust over time as well so that these things actually become more delicious. If you're really used to eating a lot of the, junk foods, these foods, it takes a little bit of time for your palate to adjust because your palate is used to this flavor explosion that's been chemically engineered to light off every sensor in your brain. So a piece of broccoli is like a piece of broccoli. It's, it's whatever. But 3 months, 6 months from now, you're gonna be like, wow, that broccoli is delicious. I can taste all the flavors. It's really, really good. So go through the grocery store guideline, make sure you kind of read it and absorb it and feel good before you go to the store. And if you have any questions, again, reach out to the Facebook group. We're here to help you. We are your resources. So if you're struggling, if you're stressed out, if you're having anxiety, get on the Facebook group and ask for help. All right, so we filled our home with delicious foods, but now we're gonna go out into the world. This is not a plan where you have to stay at home and cook every single meal by yourself. I totally realize that you're gonna be at restaurants, you're gonna have to pick food up on the fly. Maybe you didn't pack a snack and now you gotta grab something at the store. This is life. Life happens outside of your kitchen. So let's talk about how to eat at restaurants so that you're still maintaining your health and getting the best food that you can for your body. So when you're at an actual restaurant, it's really nice to remember that the waiter is there to help you. So if you want to ask for, which items on the menu, I usually ask for things that are gluten-free or dairy-free, because those are usually the items on the menu that are the healthiest. They're the closest to nature. They haven't been breaded and deep fried and all that kind of stuff. They're usually the simplest foods, right? So finding those on the menu, it also cuts down on the confusion. So if you're looking at a menu and there's like 100 things to choose from, and you say, hey, which of these things are gluten-free? And the waiter goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you're like, okay, cool, I'll choose from one of those 5. So now instead of reading the entire menu, you can just pick the one thing and then actually enjoy the company of your friends, because that's what you're there to do, really, right? Have fun with the people. Okay, so the other thing that you can do, if it's a chain or even like a fast food restaurant, they always post their allergy guides online. So you can look up the restaurant before you even go and see what they have to offer, see what their allergy-friendly options are. And I know that you probably don't have an allergy, but I'm just saying asking for gluten-free and dairy-free is a really great way to get the highest quality food and the lowest calorie food also. So when you go, you can even eat at like fast food chains because they do have gluten-free options. Often I'll get a burger without a bun. I do this at a restaurant all the time. This is the other thing. You can totally adjust anything that you're getting. So like if you're gonna get a burger, maybe instead of a bun, you get a lettuce wrap, and then you add avocado and you add sauteed mushrooms, and then instead of a huge plate of deep fried fries, you get a giant garden salad. And now you've got this delicious meal, and it's so good, but you've taken away the bread and you've taken away the deep fried. It's still satisfying, it's still delicious, you're still out with your friends, but now you've made this healthy choice. So be totally open to modifications. Restaurants are so used to this nowadays. People coming in and saying, I want this, but without this, and this. And they'll do it, and they're happy to do it. Just make sure you tip well, because you don't want to be that guy who changes everything and then doesn't tip well, and then they talk about you behind your back. I was a server for many years. I know these things. Tip well, please, just generally speaking, okay? So, let's say you are running around all day and you're on your way home, but you're starving. You just want to pop into a convenience store and you just need to grab something, right? So grabbing a bottle of water or a bottle of coconut water, water can really fill you up. If you're not going to be that much longer till you get your meal, drinking a lot of water or coconut water is a great way to kind of satiate your hunger for a little bit until you can get an actual meal. Getting something like a Kind bar or other kind of healthy bars, there's a lot of junk in those sometimes, so you do want to read the ingredient list, but you can usually find 1 or 2 things there that'll satiate you. A bag of nuts. Sometimes they'll even have fresh fruit. You could grab a banana or an apple. So there are options. You just have to see beyond the chips and the chocolate bars to pick out the things that are actually healthy for you. So for a list of that kind of stuff, check out the PDF. I've got a bunch of different options for you in there. So just remember, this isn't about being locked in your home and having to prepare every meal for yourself and being a slave to your kitchen. You can go out, you can enjoy yourself, you can still have a social life. It's really easy. You just make the healthier choice wherever possible. Okay, now we're going to talk about portion sizing. This comes up a lot. People want to know how much to eat, and that's important, but I want you to realize for the first little while, totally ignore this section. You don't need to worry about portion sizing at the very beginning. What I want you to focus on at the beginning is just eating the right foods. So following the label reading guidelines, actually eating whole, healthy foods, doing all this stuff, it's going to be an adjustment, okay? So depending on what your diet was like before you started this program, you might have a bit of a detox period. So for a little while, once you kind of switch your whole diet over, you might be feeling more lethargic, maybe a little bit headachy, maybe a little bit, I don't know, just grumpy or tired or meh, and that's totally normal. Your body is doing a lot of hard work. It's getting rid of all the toxins that have been built up over the years. It's adjusting to this new source of fuel, and that's actually a really good thing. We're training your body. So before, you were eating a lot of sugar and carbs, fast carbs. So your body was really used to this quick source of energy. So now we're giving it a lot of protein and healthy, slow-burning carbs and fat. And so your body needs to adjust to this new fuel source. So instead of the fast fuel source, it needs to learn how to burn the slow fuel source. And I promise you, although it's an adjustment at first, over time, that's going to be so vital to your long-term health. That slow burning fuel, the ability of your body to do that, is what keeps you lean and trim. It's what actually keeps your energy level stable throughout the day. So having this switchover, this adjustment period, is totally normal, but I just want you to remember that so that for the first little while, you're not taking on too much. So portion sizing really only comes into play after you're over that hurdle. You've already changed your diet, you're already feeling more energized, you're feeling good, and you're ready to take it to the next level, okay? So when we talk about portion sizing, it's not necessarily, a cup of this or a cup of that. It kind of is. But what we want to do is build a meal. So when you're building a meal, you want the majority of your plate to be vegetables. So 80% of your plate is going to be overflowing with delicious vegetables, cooked really simply, steamed, sautéed, baked. I guess that's roasted. And then with a little bit of fat, so a little bit of olive oil or one of the other approved oils, salt, pepper, any kind of flavorings you want. You want to add a little bit of fat to your vegetables so that they actually satiate you more. And there's actually a lot of fat-soluble vitamins and minerals in vegetables, so you need a little bit of fat on your vegetables to actually get the maximum nutrient out of the vegetable. And it just tastes better. So you've got this flavorful vegetable, 80% of your plate. And then with the rest of your plate, you can kind of add in your protein and your starch. So your protein serving should really only be the size of your palm. So if you're a really big person and you've got a really big palm, your portion size is going to be much bigger than little old me here. But you really don't want your meat size to be bigger than that. And I think that's the misnomer of the standard American diet, is that you have this giant T-bone steak with like a piece of broccoli and a baked potato, and then the whole meal is the steak. We want to kind of flip that so that we're having a giant piece of vegetable and then, a little portion of meat. And then for your starch, you can do a potato, a sweet potato, any kind of starchy vegetable, or a reasonable portion of healthy grain, so a rice or a quinoa, something like that to kind of fill out the meal. So really though, the bulk of the meal is going to be the vegetable. Then we have a nice portion of meat and a nice portion of grain. And eventually, if you don't want the meat, don't have the meat, just eat more vegetables. This is kind of a mix and match thing. So if you want, to eat more starch one day, it's just, the starch and the vegetables are kind of interchangeable. I think you can never eat too much potato. I've said that a million times. But so the thing that you really just want to be watching out is that you're not overeating the grains, because the grains are something that are really easy to overeat, and they metabolize a lot quicker in your body. So you really want to just be watching your portion sizing on that, but everything else, just eat until you're kind of full. So you want to eat until you're about 80% full. So what that means is that you're not overflowing with food. So when you first get that first sign of like, I'm kind of full, you should stop eating at that point. So your stomach, think of it as like a balloon. When you eat till you're 80% full, there's a little bit of space at the top. So that leaves room for digestion to happen. Your stomach is bubbling, it's moving, it's shaking, all this great stuff is going on, but you need that little bit of a buffer for it to happen properly. If you fill your stomach up to 100%, that's when you get indigestion and heartburn. And if you've ever had that feeling where you kind of like threw up in your mouth a little bit after you ate too much, that's because you just filled your stomach too much and the digestion can't happen. So as soon as you get that cue, you need to kind of stop eating, right? Because it takes about 20 minutes for your brain and your stomach to actually have that dialogue that says, I'm 100% full now, please stop eating. So the thing about that is, say you get that cue, and so you're like, okay, I'm done for now, and you put your meal aside, and you go about whatever. 20, 30 minutes later, let's say you're still really hungry. Eat some more. Have some more vegetables. Have some more potato. That sounded potato. Have some more potato. But really, eat a little bit more, and then, satiate yourself. You really want to get to that point where you're listening to your body, right? That's the main thing that we want to do here. We want to listen to our bodies, understand the cues that it's giving us, and really feel when we're full. Because I think oftentimes, I'm definitely guilty of this. I eat so fast, which is something that we also need to do. We need to put a fork down and slow down. But when you eat really, really fast, you don't realize it, and then you're way too full, and then you're uncomfortable, right? To that, ugh. So just eat to your full, start listening to the cues from your body, and you'll be totally fine. So when it comes to when to eat, I have an advanced version of this in the program. Again, that's for when you're totally feeling good about everything you're eating. You're eating well, you've been eating well for months, and you've mastered 3 solid meals a day. So I really want you to be focusing on getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, and have it be a nice meal, right? So you want to get that mix of protein, carbs, and fat at every single meal, and have it be set meal times. Your body's going to adjust. Your body actually gives these hunger cues and hormones. So if you're normally used to eating at 8 a.m., at 7:45, your body starts waking up and saying, okay, I'm ready for my food now. So you really want to get into that pattern, because that's when your digestive juices are flowing. That's when you're actually going to get the maximum nutrition out of your food, is when you're actually on the set schedule and your body is adapted to it. Okay? So the first thing that you really want to do is get used to eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And after a while, you're probably not even going to really need snacks in between. You want to leave, a good couple hour buffer between each meal, 3 to 4 hours between a meal. At first, you might want snacks in between just because you're used to having snacks, things like apples or, any kind of fruit, any kind of nut, an avocado, things like that. Those will actually be really filling. Nut butters, those are great. But after a while, you'll start to notice that you don't even really need a snack unless you actually accidentally went way too long between a meal. So at first, just get really, really used to eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, and make that a habit, make that a routine, make that something that feels really good and that is stable and solid in your life. Okay, guys, so that was a lot of information, and I totally realized that this is the biggest, heaviest module of the entire course. So really take some time, print everything out, read it through, highlight it, mark it up, ask questions on the Facebook group, really digest this information, pun kind of intended, but you really want to take the time and actually start to think about and learn and apply this knowledge. So if you want to take 2 weeks with this module, that's totally cool. As long as you're kind of learning and applying, set some time in your calendar to do the kitchen cleanup, set some time in your calendar that you can actually get to the grocery store, and really, start to live the breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, and start to live making your meals, and start to live making healthy choices at your restaurants. So take this information, it's yours for life. So take it, print it out, have it on your phone, have it handy, have it ready, review it. If you have any questions, reach out. I know this was a lot. I've been talking for 17 hours. So take some time, absorb this, feel good about it, and know that if you have any questions, you're stumbling, you're not sure, reach out to the Facebook group. We're here to support you. You can really do this. Once you get over that hurdle of learning how to do it, it's super, super easy, I promise. Okay.